Good afternoon, everybody. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes to let everyone get joined up. Just going to give it another minute or so and then we'll get started. Okay, it's 12:02. Might as well get going. Thanks everybody for joining me. My name is Zach Zalakowski. I'm the Director of Municipal Affairs here at Alberta Council. Um, this webinar is primarily meant for new councillors, but it's pretty general information. It's essentially Advocacy 101 and what you should know as a new councillor or a council member uh, as to what your role is as it relates to your community's advocacy. So just a little bit of housekeeping. I'm just going to run through this slideshow. I try to get through it as fast as possible. I know it's your lunch hour and a lot of people are busy, but feel free to ask any questions whenever you want. Just throw it in the chat, and I'll get to them kind of when it's appropriate. So don't hesitate. If you've got a question, throw it in there. If it's something I'm talking about or not, just throw it in there. This webinar will also be recorded and available on albertacouncilnews.com after the webinar in case any of your colleagues or anybody else missed it but still wants to be able to watch it. So just a little bit about Alberta Council, especially for new councillors that maybe haven't seen us or heard of us before. We're a legal and lobby firm. Um, we started after the 2015 Alberta election as a multi-partisan firm, which is still our foundation. We work across political lines to help municipalities and organizations navigate government and get results. Over the years, we've built a team that blends political, legal, and communications experience, people who've worked inside government and know how decisions actually get made. And while government relations remains at our core, our work has expanded quite a bit. So we now help municipalities with advocacy strategy, which turns council priorities into practical plans. We do policy research and writing, so you have solid evidence to back up your message. We also help with funding and grant support, identifying opportunities and positioning projects to secure dollars. Our Indigenous and community relations work focuses on building genuine partnerships that last beyond a single project. On top of that, we provide training and capacity building, helping councils strengthen their advocacy and governance skills. And finally, we offer strategic campaigns and communication support, making sure your message cuts through and reaches the right audience. In short, we become a full service partner for municipalities. Our role is to help you connect your local priorities to the decision makers who can move them forward. I also head up our municipal affairs division, and we try to provide a lot of useful information for municipalities, whether that's through a webinar like this, which we do quite often. We have a budget webinar that we put on every year. We have a federal budget webinar coming up on Thursday. We also provide a lot of briefing notes and things like that for any time there's legislation that comes out that impacts municipalities. We also offer a biweekly newsletter that is full of useful information about kind of what's going on in provincial politics. So if there's anything we can help you with, please don't hesitate to reach out. And you can sign up for all of our updates and newsletters and stuff like that on our website. Cool. Let's get into it. So what is advocacy? Advocacy is essentially influencing decisions made by others. Um, Counselors advocate internally within council to attempt to build consensus. They advocate regionally with other municipalities, conventions, AB munis or RMA, and then externally, so to the province. So advocacy is about bringing attention to an issue and not forcing an outcome. It works best when messages and timing and relationships align. So repetition and consistency build recognition. That's really kind of the absolute foundation of advocacy is that it requires repetition as well as consistency. So I get into it a bit later too, but it the consistency is if you take one thing away from this, consistency is pretty critical. So why advocacy matters for councils. Municipalities with a reputation for clarity and consistency are heard more readily by ministers and MLAs. So provincial decisions obviously directly affect your municipal operations, whether that's through funding or policy, even things like the LEEA, the Local Authority Election Act that just governed our last election is governed by the province. So municipalities exist by creation of the province, and so the province's decisions obviously affects you the most. So proactive advocacy helps shape the policy and not just react to it. If we're able to be proactive when an issue arises, or if a municipality determines that a policy needs to be changed, the proactive advocacy helps shape that policy. It also strengthens the community's reputation as a credible voice. Municipalities are more and more realizing that advocacy is a key tenet of an administration or of a council, and or being more strategic as it relates to the advocacy with the province. So, um, it is up to an individual council how they want to have a relationship with the province. However, it is our experience that a friendly relationship is much more advantageous than an adversarial one. It also builds long-term relationships and trust with decision makers, which relates back to the consistency and timing issue. So what's council's role in advocacy? So council is obviously the collective voice of the municipality. Uh, Council sets the what and the why, and the staff handle the the wow as well. Administration handles the how. So it's a council's responsibility to identify and endorse clear shared priorities. Many people that run for municipal office are often shape their campaign on one issue where, we need a new street light, or we need to reduce taxes, or we need to put in a rec center, whatever the case may be. A lot of the times councillors will run on one strong election issue that's very important to the community. However, when you become a member of council and actually get on council, you have to govern for the entire municipality and build consensus amongst your colleagues. So it's really important to identify and endorse clear shared priorities. And then you need to delegate your advocacy execution. You can't, it doesn't really work in practicality to have every member of council out there advocating on their own. So usually, um, advocacy is carried out by the mayor or the reeve, with reporting back to council. And then CEO is usually part of that as well. Maintain message discipline, speak with one voice. I kind of talk about that a lot when speaking with municipalities. It is very, very critical to speak with one voice. There has been issues in the past where the official message from council was one thing. It was, we really need to get this bridge built, for example. And when talking with the minister, the council would say, yeah, this is our number one priority. We need this bridge built. And then one individual councillor went to talk to the minister at another point in time. Said, yeah, we don't really need a bridge, but you know what we really do need? We need a rec center. And then it was very easy for the minister to say, you guys don't know what it is you want. Go back, figure it out amongst yourselves, and then come and talk to me. So it's really honestly critical to speak with one voice. And then avoid individual lobbying that contradicts council direction, which is basically the same thing. Um, it's not useful for a counselor to go off on a tangent, really, when they're speaking with the minister, to kind of go after a pet project that they might have. You really want to have a strategic plan as it relates to clear and shared priorities. Uh, this PowerPoint presentation won't be put out anywhere, I don't think. There will be a recording online. I may be able to just send this out to delegates after. I have to look to see what's in here again. I'm more than happy to come talk to your council though, if you want. So setting advocacy goals and priorities. So talking about, shared priorities and making sure that we're on brand and on message and have a strategic plan. So how do you actually go about doing that? I would recommend you start with your strategic plan. So I think probably most, if not all, councils have their strategic plan scheduled, probably for January or February, something like that. I would recommend doing that work first and taking the time to work with your council colleagues to develop a strategic plan that obviously reflects your community needs as well. And then from that strategic plan, you're able to develop an advocacy plan. So our recommendation typically is to focus on 3 to 5 advocacy priorities. Those are typically your, long-term goals for the community where it is maybe you need some infrastructure funding or you need a wastewater treatment plant or you might want a policy change that, brings in a community revitalization levy, something like that. Whatever you need from the province, focus on 3 to 5 achievable priorities and what's achievable, what's a good advocacy goal, something that has a direct municipal impact, direct to your municipality. A lot of the times, there will be some sort of advocacy priority that the community has developed that is cross-jurisdictional or covers a lot of municipalities across the province. For example, back when the provincial police force was first announced, under Jason Kenney, there was a lot of municipalities that were opposed to the creation of a province-wide police force, and they wanted to stick with the RCMP. It wasn't a good idea for any individual municipality to kind of go on that advocacy path on their own. And instead, because it was multi-jurisdictional, it was across the province, it made more sense to utilize your provincial associations to coordinate that advocacy because strength in numbers is actually a very real thing when it comes to lobbying the province. And so there are some times that, direct municipal impact is key for your priorities, but you may have priorities that, cross boundaries. And if that's the case, both Alberta municipalities and the Rural Municipalities Association of Alberta have really strong advocacy teams that would be able to assist you in advocating for that using their resources as well, and also combining multiple municipalities into one cohesive advocacy team. So the primary way to do that is by passing resolutions at one of the conventions. They would be able to give you more information about that. But if you do have a issue that you're wanting to advance to the province and it does affect multiple municipalities, that might be the way you want to go. The other thing that's like almost step number one for any of your advocacy, and I can't repeat this often enough because it is something that needs to be repeated, is you have to have a clear ask. We often have municipalities that come and talk to us and want to work towards a goal and say, we need the province to get on this, or we need the province to do something about this. And my first question is, great, but what is it that you want? What is it that you want the province to do? And if you can't answer that question, you're not ready to start advocating for it or about it. It might be straight funding. We need $5 billion. We need then the province to kick in 30%, whatever the case may be. Or it might be, this is the policy we want changed. We want the province to change this regulation, whatever the case may be. Make sure you have a clear ask. We will often get municipalities that, were doing it on their own before coming to work with us. And we'll go do a political audit and talk to a minister and say, like, how's it been going so far? And the minister says, yeah, they're great. They're really nice. However, they didn't ask me for anything. They just had a conversation and didn't ask me for anything. So in their mind, it's kind of like, well, what was the point of that? Why did they waste my time with the meeting if they didn't even ask me for anything? So it, I know I already said this, if you take one thing away, if you take 2 things away from this webinar, let it be this one as well. Is make sure you understand exactly what it is you want the province to do for you. Another key component of a effective advocacy goal is to make sure it aligns with provincial interests. This could be a little bit more difficult for municipalities, especially smaller municipalities, to kind of understand what that means. I would recommend at this moment, we just got a brand new set of mandate letters for each of the ministers. I would take a read through those, see if there's anything in there that, kind of talks about something you're interested in. We did a webinar on the web on the mandate letters as well, which you could probably find at our website if you want to watch that. I think we did it about a month ago. But if there's something in those mandate letters that resonates with one of your advocacy priorities, you can use that as a bit of a not so much leverage, but it is a good indication that your priority aligns with provincial interests, which will result in a much better chance of success. And then public support and evidence are also very useful. A lot of the times municipalities will be asking for something and it isn't necessarily in line with what the public or the community is after at that particular moment. And so the local MLA, who would be the first point of contact for any minister asking about a municipal advocacy priority, might say, yeah, that's not really a big issue right now. That's not something we need to focus on. So then the minister has another excuse to kind of kick it down the road, right? So public support and evidence are also useful to provide a little bit of social proof for what it is the municipality is asking for. So it's important to understand too, like the province has 1,000,001 people and stakeholders asking for money or asking for change. The municipality's role is kind of differentiating the fact of what it is you're asking for and why the guys down the road and then the municipality next door shouldn't get funding first or shouldn't have their advocacy priorities looked at more favorably than your own. So anything you can do to support your ask and differentiate your ask and explain the emergency of the need. There is a lot of requests on government funding at the moment, as there always is, but it's a limited pot of money. And this year is probably going to be more limited than most in the last couple years, given the price of oil. And the government has already been indicating that the budget is going to be kind of rough. So why should your municipality get that pot of money? Why should your municipality get that grant? Why should your municipality move to the head of the queue for whatever it may be? And you need to be able to justify that. Uh, Public support and evidence is one way to do that as well. Just because I am a lobbyist, I will explain how we can help, because we get this question a lot. And it's not always super clear how a lobbyist can help a municipality. I've been in this business quite a while, and we've seen every year more and more municipalities working with us, and more municipalities taking a strategic look at how they do their advocacy. So the way that a lobbyist helps you, not a sales pitch, I'm just kind of explaining it. We help you understand what's politically possible and when. We have a large team. We're right across the street from the legislature. All we do is politics. All we do is provincial politics. And so we're constantly in communication with ministers and staff and have an understanding of what it is the government is looking to do right now. So we'll get, heads up that, hey, we want to put more money into recovery communities, or we'll get a heads up on, the provincial police force is happening. We're looking for a community that's interested in doing a pilot, stuff like that. We're able to kind of focus on that's our job, is just provincial government politics. So it allows you to kind of stay in your community and stay focused on local issues and not have to worry about following what's going on in question period every day, because we'll do that for you. We also help you refine key messages and background materials. Our team does a lot of writing and a lot of writing for ministers. We kind of make a joke about it, but it's true as well, is that we typically rewrite our materials to be at a grade 3 reading level for these ministers because they get thousands upon thousands of documents that they have to read all the time. And so however we can make it as easy for them to understand so they get the message as quickly as possible is more beneficial to what it is you're asking for or advocating for. So we can help you refine your key messages, create briefing documents, those kinds of things. And then we're obviously able to connect you to relevant decision makers. So Alberta Council hosts a lot of different events where we bring together ministers and clients and stakeholders from across the entire spectrum of stakeholders for a chance for meet and greets. I talk about it in a couple slides, but relationships are really important in this business. And so the ability to mingle with ministers and decision makers in an informal setting is really important. We're also able to advise on tone, positioning. We'll do follow-up. So I talked about it at the beginning, but a friendly relationship with ministers and the government of the day is really important. Um, Adversarial relationships don't move you down the street as much as we would hope. Um, so we're able to advise you on the tone. We're able to position your message with the government. Even things like changing what words we use depending on if it's the UCP or the NDP. Each of those governments react to words differently. So we're able to do those kinds of things. And then we can offer candid feedback from behind the scenes. We'll often have conversations with ministers before and after. And if you've been in council before, if you've met with a minister before, especially at like RMA convention, for example, those are usually really quick meetings. They're 10 minutes long. You get to introduce yourself, so then you kind of have 30 seconds to give your pitch before the minister has to go meet with the next municipality. And so the minister will be like, yeah, that's great. So nice to meet you. I love your idea. It sounds great. And then as soon as that door closes and the mayor and council leave that room, the minister will look at his staff and be like, that's never going to happen. Right? So you don't always get the best feedback just from those meetings. We're able to we'll give the minister a call after and be like, how'd that go? And they're like, yeah, we're never doing that. So we're able to give you a little bit of that as well. I either put everybody to sleep or I'm going way too fast. There's no questions yet, which is atypical. So building an effective advocacy strategy, understand your audience. Sometimes you'll be meeting with the minister, sometimes it'll be with the ADM, or it could be with the chief of staff. Could be with anyone. You want to make sure that you tailor your message to whoever's receiving it, because the minister is going to need different level of detail than the ADM does. The chief of staff is going to look at things in a different way than the ADM or the minister does. So you really need to understand your audience and make sure that the way you're speaking about your priority is tailored to that individual. Um, a lot of the time, municipalities think they need to understand how to solve the problem for the minister, when that's not the case. It's the minister's problem to figure out how he's going to solve it. So, for example, a wastewater treatment plant in municipality might say, "Hey, I need 10 million bucks for the wastewater treatment plant, and here's where you can find that $10 million." And I always say that's not your problem to solve for the minister. The minister, if they decide that they want to go ahead with your project, if your project has merit and it requires government funding, they'll figure out where to get the money. You don't need to solve that for them. Or another way to look at it is we really want electronic vote tabulators back. And so we're going to advocate to the province to have electronic vote tabulators. And here's the supplier that you can get them from, and here's how it's secure and all that. That's not the municipality's job in their advocacy strategy. Your job is to convince the minister to bring back electronic vote tabulators. It'll be up to the minister and his staff to figure out how they're going to do that. So don't try to solve their problems for them. Just try to sell your message. Uh, Tailor your message to how does this help the province achieve its goals. That's not essential, but it is useful if you can kind of tie in whatever it is you're asking for to something that they're doing or they're wanting to accomplish. So maybe the municipality has a really big problem with crime in their community, and it could potentially be due to bail or whatever the case may be. And so your goal, your advocacy goal is to make your community safer. You could tailor that message or that request from the province, hey, we need your help to make our community safer, to their desire to pilot a Alberta Sheriff Police Force. So you could tailor your message to be like, hey, we're going to help you achieve your goals by piloting this, but we're also going to achieve our goals by making our community safer. So it's a way you could tie it in. talked about it before about, simplifying your message, but package your message simply. The way that I usually write it, our briefing documents is just a short paragraph on background, a little bit of information about what the issue is, and then what is your ask. You want to talk about what the problem is, what is the solution that you're after, and then how does it benefit the government to do it? Use multiple touch points. Advocacy is a long-term game. Um, I've worked with communities in the past that has taken us 4 years to get our advocacy priority solved. It can be a really long-term game. So you have to use multiple touch points. Sometimes it's a letter from the mayor or the reeve to the minister. It could be meetings. It could be briefings. It could be Zoom meetings. It can also be, hey, every time we see them at a convention or at a hospitality suite or whatever the case may be, we bring it up. We say, hey, just keeping this top of mind, whatever the case is. I also have media in here. And the reason why I have media in here is more of a warning as opposed to a, hey, you should use media. Um, the way that we view media and advocacy is like absolute last resort. If you go to the media to negotiate your advocacy in public, the government is really hesitant to talk to you anymore in the future. So I would view the media as being a very last ditch resort. So just keep that in mind. The And the way I'm talking about media is if you go to the media and say, hey, the province isn't doing what they need to be doing, we're screwed on X, Y, and Z because the province isn't doing this. Or if you're making the province out to be the bad guy in the media, that's last resort. Um, what you can do is you can talk to the media about, hey, here's some of the advocacy priorities that we're working on with advocating to the government, just to give you a heads up as to these are the things that we're doing. That's different. I'm just saying don't negotiate and don't attack in the media. That includes Twitter or X or whatever it's called. Um, Ministers see stuff, and if they don't, their staff does. And if somebody on council is talking a lot of smack on the internet, somebody is going to see that, and it will be passed on to the minister. And so if they get a meeting request saying, hey, the city of XYZ wants to meet with you to talk about this. And they will say, hey, didn't one of their council members just call me an idiot on Twitter last week? We don't need to meet with them. So just keep that in mind. I think we're doing some media training for municipalities coming up post-convention as well. So if you're wanting to kind of learn more about best practices in media, um, keep your eyes open for that as well. And then follow up. So advocacy is persistence, not persuasion in one shot. A lot of the times municipalities will anticipate, hey, we met with the minister and we talked to him about our problem. Why haven't they done anything yet? It takes time. It's got to be that right mix of timing and persuasion and budget. It's really nebulous, right? You can almost never point to one direct action that a community has taken that has resulted in an advocacy win. So you got to be persistent. You got to keep on advocating, whether it's, basically every touch. So don't anticipate immediate success. So helpful tips to remember. Relationships first, request second. Relationships is what this business is about a lot of the time. Being able to put a name to a face is really important for people. They're people too, even though they're ministers and are responsible for the departments, they're just people too. Try to think in your own situation that, if you had a resident that all they did was complain about snow clearing and they just wanted you, every time they saw you, they're just like, hey, clean my street better. And they didn't try to build a relationship with you, how often would you want to be talking to them? If the phone rang and you saw it was their number, and you're like, oh, all he's gonna do is ask me for something, you're probably not gonna be rushing to pick up that phone. However, if you built a relationship with somebody and they talk to you about other things, how's the kids? What are your vacation plans for the summer? Those kinds of things. Or maybe you guys have built a connection and over barbecuing or fly fishing or whatever the case may be, then you're gonna be much more inclined to have a conversation with that person. So relationships first, requests second. As I said, never assume one meeting is going to be success. A lot of the things that communities are going to be advocating for or on take a lot of time and a lot of work to kind of get it to a win. Another really important thing to remember is to celebrate small wins and milestones. Sometimes we've worked with municipalities in the past that we've worked with them for a long time, and they're like, "We're not getting anywhere. We're not getting anywhere on our priorities. We haven't received those big dollars for an infrastructure fund. We haven't seen a grant for the last year." But yet they've met with 15 ministers and they met with a minister multiple times and they had a dinner with a minister and everybody that they see in the hallways during convention knows their name and knows what they're doing and knows what their project is. That's a huge win. I know it says celebrate small wins, but like that is a really big win. So it's important to recognize that you're moving forward, even if you're not necessarily getting that big win. Um, Advancing the relationships of council and your municipality as a whole with government is a really big success anyway. If you can be seen as a partner with the government as opposed to an adversary, that is in itself worth its weight in gold. Because they will be more inclined to pick up the phone, more inclined to listen to what it is you're working on, and they'll bring things forward to you as well. If there's a project that they have or something going on in the community, they'll come and talk to you about it first so that you don't have to chase them. That reminds me too, the importance of your local MLA. Your local MLA might not be a minister, they might not be in cabinet, they might not even be in government. Um, but you should really have a strong relationship with your local MLA, regardless of who they are and what their position is. One day they might be in cabinet, one day they might be in government. Um, if they're a backbench MLA, they still are part of the caucus. So as it relates to the government, they have caucus meetings all the time. The opposition does too, but in government, they have a lot of caucus meetings and they're able to discuss issues and they're able to bring up what's going on with their municipalities and their local ridings. And if you have a good relationship with your local MLA and your local MLA is aware of your advocacy priorities, that's what I would recommend is like talk to your local MLA and be like, here's the 5 things that we're working on. This is what's really important for us that the province can help us with. They're going to be aware of it. When they have conversations with their colleagues, they're able to advocate on your behalf as well. And then also like if you meet with the Minister of Transportation and say, hey, we need a new highway or we need a new turning lane off the highway into our community. First thing they're going to do is they're going to go talk to the local MLA and say, is this something that's really important? And if that is the first time your local MLA has heard that this is a priority for the community, that's not going to go well. So I would recommend talking to your local, making sure that they're well informed and well briefed on what's going on. If you send a letter to a minister, copy your local MLA. If you change your advocacy priorities, talk to your local MLA. Keep internal communication tight. Council admin has to be in alignment. Make sure that you guys are kind of rowing in the same direction. It's super important to make sure that you all have the same message. Consistency matters more than creativity. You don't need to make these really creative ad buys or anything like that. It's just got to be consistent. Okay, couple more slides only, and then hopefully you folks have some questions. So you might be attending your very first Alberta Municipalities or RMA convention, which is exciting. These are really kind of cool conventions. I've been going to AB Munis or AUMA as it was before, or RMA for the last like 15 years now, 10 years, 12 years, something like that. It's been a long time. And they're a really good opportunity to connect with your peers, with other council members from across the province, hear about what's going on in their communities. Honestly, it's a really great way to build your capacity, to hear and what other people are facing and work together. The other great thing about it is there's a lot of ministers around and present. So you might be grabbing a coffee in the morning, and the Minister of Infrastructure is grabbing a coffee right next to you. Or you come to our hospitality suite, which I'm going to plug. Alberta Council hosts hospitality suites at both conventions. We usually rent out a bar, and you can come have a drink with us and have some food. So that's my plug. Come have a drink with me. But we always have really good turnout of ministers at those hospitality suites too. So typically a minister will come and they'll just do their rounds and they'll walk from table to table, meeting each council and hanging out and hearing what's going on in their communities. So it's really important to kind of have a bit of a strategy as to how you're going to interact with these ministers or staff or MLAs at either the AB meetings or RMA convention. My number one recommendation, especially right now, given that most councils haven't developed their strat plan and haven't had a chance to discuss an advocacy plan, is to build relationships. It's going to be really important for you to just build relationships with these folks, find out where they're from, find out what they do. Do they have kids? Those kinds of questions. Build a relationship. A lot of the time, these ministers will fall back into their default and be like, "What's going on in your community? What's going on in Chestermere? What's going on in the MD of Greenview? What's happening?" So, if you have a short elevator pitch as to what's going on in your community, that is super useful too. You can be like, "Hey, yeah, thanks for asking. We've got this, I don't know, tailings pond in our community that we really need to deal with. Unfortunately, the municipality just doesn't have the funds right now to deal with it. So, it'd be great if we could talk about, a path forward and maybe working together to find a way to find a solution to clean this tailings pond up. Whatever. Short elevator pitch. And if there is a clear ask, make sure that you include that. So, hey, we really would like to meet with you about piloting a police force. We'd really like to meet with you to talk about this bridge that's, needing some repairs. Whatever the case may be. If you are wanting a meeting, make sure that there's a reason for it. Don't meet with ministers just to meet with them. But if there's something going on in your community that, the province should be aware of or that you want to talk to them about, that's when you do it. But really just focus on building relationships first as opposed to requests. Expect informal encounters. Yeah, you'll see these guys everywhere. They'll be at all the things. There'll be a big group of them kind of everywhere. So hallways, they'll hang out in the hallways and have conversations, and they'll be at hospitality events. And there's also typically, I think it's at RMA as well, but the Minister of Municipal Affairs always hosts a reception. Attend that. There's a lot of ministers at that. And they also have municipal bear pit sessions, which is basically a Q&A where they'll stick a bunch of ministers up at the front of the room, and there'll be open mics in the convention hall where you can go and ask a question of the minister. If you stand at the back of the room, that's where all of their chiefs of staff and press secretaries and ministerial assistants will also be standing. So if you see a bunch of younger folks in the back of a room in a suit, that's likely a minister's staff. So that's usually where I'm parked, and I'll be having conversations at the back of the room. So there's lots of opportunities to interact with the province. So these conventions are a really good way to do that. So some do's and don'ts of meeting ministers. Do lead with one clear ask, like I said. Well, just go back one. There we go. Lead with one clear ask. Make sure you have an ask. Honestly, like that's a key important message. Be polite, brief, and relatable. Ministers are really busy. There's always a lineup of, not always, but there's usually a lineup of people that are wanting to talk to a minister. Be clear and concise. Be respectful of their time. They're usually on tight schedules. Brevity shows professionalism. Build a relationship is like the key one, especially for this early in your term, like build a relationship. And then if you had a good interaction with a minister or chief of staff, follow up with a short email saying, "Hey, it was really great to meet you. Thanks for taking the time to learn more about Strathmore," whatever the case may be. It is another little personal touch that, reinforces your name with your face The fact that you had a conversation, it's just another touch point. Don't monopolize or surprise a minister. Don't ambush a minister. They don't like to be surprised any more than the next guy does. Um, in the past, I've had a call from a minister because they're like, "You didn't tell me that so and so is bringing this huge critic from the community into this meeting." And I'm like, "Well, I know that," and that ticks them off. So don't do that. Don't dump a ton of details or bring binders. The ministers typically, especially at like a first meeting or first touch point, they don't need that level of detail. What they need is the story. They need the story of why is this an issue to you? Why is this an issue to your community? And why should they care about it? So don't bring details, don't bring spreadsheets. If they need that level of information, they'll ask for it. And so a lot of the time that'll happen in a meeting is like, hey, we need more information on this. So can you send that to us? And then you just say, absolutely. And you send them the details or get your staff to send them the details the week after. Don't complain about past decisions. Don't blame them. Yes, they might have made a decision that, sucked for the municipality, or they might have made a decision that you think is boneheaded. But that's not what you're there for. You're not there to complain to them. You're there to kind of find a path forward. So don't dump a bunch of blame on them. Usually the phrase "we'd like to work with the province on blank" is a great way to start building that relationship. Don't forget to engage the staff. A lot of the times, I was a staff for a long time. People that forget about the staff or don't ignore the staff don't understand the fact that staff are usually the gatekeepers, and they're usually the ones that see your message first, and decide whether the minister gets to see it. So, build a relationship with the staff as well. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, but just say hey, say hi to them. Um, don't forget to engage staff. Question. It seems like Calgary Stampede week events are fast becoming an important place to build relationships with government officials. Calgary Stampede is political Super Bowl now. So that's kind of the way that we talk about it. It happens every year, and it is the premier political event in the country, as far as we are concerned. Every lobby group holds some sort of event at the Calgary Stampede, and ministers are there the entire first weekend. So yes, I advise all of our municipal clients that they need to be at Stampede. Alberta Council itself provides an opportunity to attend. I think last year we did 4 different events to give an opportunity for municipalities to connect with ministers and other government stakeholders. Uh, if you can make it to Stampede, I would advise you to do so. It is out of the reach of a lot of municipalities, given that it is insanely expensive. However, if you can do it, it's a great idea to do it. It's just another way to build relationships with ministers and staff and other government stakeholders. And as I've been talking about, relationships are really key. So yes, other events that are good at building relationships, other levels of government. So there are a number of stakeholder events. There's a number of conventions that happen over the year where ministers are present. So last week on Thursday, the Economic Developers Association held a deputy minister dinner. There was a lot of municipalities there. There was a lot of bureaucrats, senior bureaucrats from the government. So another way to build relationships. Stampede is one, conventions are another. There's other things like the throne speech event. So your local MLA might invite you to the throne speech. Take them up on that. Those kinds of things. Basically, any way that you can kind of get in front of them and build that relationship and sell yourself as a partner with the province is going to be advantageous to the municipality. I know somebody's probably going to say something. This is an old picture. They don't have a group shot of the new cabinet. This is as close as I can get, even though there are a couple of members in here that aren't ministers anymore. Don't hate me for it. Next steps, develop slash update advocacy priorities. I would do it annually, just review them. Like I talked about before, get your strat plan out of the way first. Make sure that you're all kind of on the same page, and then develop and update your advocacy priorities. Prepare supporting materials, so that's briefing documents, key messages. Depending on the issue, you might have a one-page document that you leave behind. It varies depending on what council it is, who the mayor is, who the reeve is, how they like to do their presentations. But what it ultimately means is make sure that you're as prepared as you can be to have that meeting. Make sure that you can speak intelligently about the issue you're advocating upon. That doesn't mean that you need to have every single answer. If the minister asks you a question or somebody asks you a question about what you're advocating on and you don't have that answer, it's okay to say, hey, I don't have those details in front of me. Let me get back to you. And then you can have your staff or whatever put together the information and then get it to the minister at a later date. Just make sure that you actually respond. If the minister asks for some information and you commit to providing a response, make sure you actually respond. And then you schedule follow-up meetings post-convention. If you made a connection with the Minister of Justice at RMA and you guys were having a really good conversation and he's like, I'd like to hear more about that, make sure you schedule that follow-up meeting. Make sure that you actually reach out to their office and schedule that meeting. And then, as this question about Stampede, continue building relationships year round. It really is the best way to advance your advocacy is if you have a good relationship with these people. So that is my last slide. It's a lot of information. As I mentioned, Alberta Council does a lot of work in this area where we provide a lot of information for municipalities, whether it's briefing documents on legislation that gets introduced or webinars. If there's a piece of legislation that is directly impacting municipalities, I almost always will be doing a webinar following that. So if that's something you're interested in, keep your eyes open for that. You sign up for a newsletter, those kinds of things. That's where we dump all that information. We're also going to be at Alberta municipalities and RMA conventions. Come see us at our booth. We will have a booth at the trade show. We also host our hospitality suites, as I mentioned. So come have a drink with us. The hospitality suites at Alberta municipalities and RMA is where a lot of advocacy work gets done. So make sure you take advantage of those as well. Does anybody have any questions about this or anything I talked about or anything as it relates to advocacy or anything like that? I'd be more than happy to answer. Absolutely not, Justin. Mr. Burton, I would ask that you just throw your question in the chat, please. Do I have any tips on keeping names straight? I wish I did. I am so bad with names. I'm really great with faces, but names are, I don't know what it is. My brain won't work that way. The best part about these conventions is that everybody's wearing a name tag. Ministers sometimes won't, especially if they're at hospitality suites, but everybody else is wearing a name tag. So that's really helpful. However, what we've provided for our clients is we developed cheat sheets for both the UCP and the NDP. So you can ask your staff to maybe put something together like that, where it is a bit of a cheat sheet of faces and names that you can then study before going into convention. I wouldn't recommend bringing them with you to the actual bar, but you can put that together and study for some of those. Any other questions? I'll leave it open for another minute or so. Tom, you gonna put your question in there? In today's world of top-down decision making, where the power's in the premier's office, how do you justify spending time and money advocating to our local MLAs rather than trying to get the premier's ear? I would disagree with that statement. I think that a lot of the ministers actually have a lot of local autonomy in their departments themselves. Under the previous premier, under Premier Kenny, it was pretty top down. But these ministers have a lot more leeway as it relates to day-to-day stuff. So for example, as it relates to infrastructure spending for one of your advocacy priorities, the Minister of Transportation is responsible for doling out a lot of those dollars. Where those dollars get spent is pretty much up to him and his department. So there's a lot of information behind that on how they make those decisions, but um, advocacy to the minister is the way that those decisions get made. And so your local MLA is also a really big voice in that conversation as well, because almost always the minister will reach out to his colleagues in caucus and say, what are your top three priorities in your community? And if you haven't ever talked to your MLA about the fact that you need a bridge or you need an on-ramp or whatever it is, or another stop sign, um, they're not going to include your priority in their list to the minister. So I don't ever see it as a waste of time to build relationships. I mean, that's a huge part of my job, so how could I not? But building a relationship with your local MLA is pretty critical because they are still a member of caucus or a member of the opposition, whatever the case is, and they're able to advocate on your behalf. And even if they're not in a position to influence the decision day to day, there might be a cabinet shuffle next week or the week after, or there might be a rejigging of who's in what position, and all of a sudden, guess what? They're making that decision. So we've worked with municipalities in the past that have had a negative or an adversarial relationship with their local MLA, and that is probably the number one hindrance to them moving advocacy priorities forward. So I would say invite them to a council meeting or have, once a quarter, you guys have like a joint session to talk about, what's going on in the community and what their issues are, what are they hearing? Just build that relationship with them. Thanks, Tom, for your support. I appreciate you. So asking for something from the MLA, is it beneficial to ask what projects they may be planning for your municipality or surrounding municipalities? Yeah, absolutely. Um, It's useful to know what projects they may be planning. They usually advance that kind of stuff in advance. So the provincial budget will usually have a list of major projects that they're undertaking. The Minister of Transportation usually has a bucket of money that is responsible for upgrades and maintenance that doesn't get listed in the capital plan. There's no itemized list for that kind of stuff. Um, so your local MLA might let you know, or you're gonna get a letter from the Minister of Transportation out of the blue, which happens way more often than you think. Um, that says, "Hey, we're sending you a check for 14 million bucks so that you can do your interchange upgrade." And you weren't expecting it, it just kind of happens. So sometimes you can get that information, but most of the times it's kind of just ad hoc. Any other questions? Great. Well, if there's nothing else, thank you so much for attending. You'll see me around at a lot of these events. I attend a lot of conferences. So if you see me at RMA or AB Minis, come say hi. Be more than happy to chat. So otherwise, congratulations on your election to council, and I wish you the best of luck in your term. Thanks, guys.